Welcome everybody to our recap of our session 2 that we just had tonight on Clubhouse about prior to day 1. And thank you, Tharmila, for being here with us.
Thanks, Jacob, for having me. Honestly, today was a jam-packed section. We covered a number of topics today. We talked about everything from, getting ready to getting your license, that pre-reg stage, right? And being prepared. So we talked about everything from choosing your brokerage, whether you want to go solo or team. And we talked about some, creating your brand and some of the things to keep in mind, how you can prepare yourself by some of even the lead gen ideas and how to plan ahead. We talked about some marketing training, as well as some apps and budgeting as well. And today we brought some guests on who are new real estate agents in different parts of North America, and they're all in different phases. Some chose to go solo, some are thinking to go with a team, and we had a number of people come up on stage and ask us questions. So it was a really a good jam-packed section. So let's what are some topics that stood out to you that were interesting?
What are you doing while you're learning that course? And you and I kind of had the same answer. We were like frantically trying to figure out where we were going to go, how this was going to work. Ryan had said, one thing the course, doesn't really teach you. It doesn't teach you how to be an agent, right? It teaches kind of what not to do, what laws you can and can't break, or obviously you can't break any laws, but what is your structure of being a real estate agent? It doesn't really teach you how to be an agent. So one thing I did was focused on marketing and what brokerage I was going to join, because they are going to attribute to my success, right? I'll be successful anywhere, but how's the pay going to work? How's my training? Do I get a mentor? Am I on my own until, I need a question answered? What is the training like? Because I've heard horror stories with literally had a new agent the other day tell me that his broker has a 3-day turnaround for response time, and because she owns 3 locations and she's just spread thin, there's no coordinator for the office, and it's with a big brokerage, and he's fumbling his way through a real estate contract. So that was super important to me, is what is the training? What are my fees going to be to join? Things like that. So I really liked that first topic of, how did you choose a broker? We researched those things, and I knew I wanted to have a sales team. And so in the traditional state of things, that is being a broker, right? Is working your way up to that. In Texas, you have to be licensed 5 years to be a broker. So I wanted to find a quicker way around that, which there isn't, but depending on your brokerage models. So that was a super exciting topic for me.
Yeah, same with me. I want this to be useful for the people that are watching, because we're giving them really a recap of what we talked about. And we had Mike Sherrard on as our special guest tonight. And I love the comment he made about, the first brokerage that he joined. And he felt like he kept chasing and chasing and chasing after things to make sense for him until he had found what he was looking for at his current brokerage at eXp Realty. And, I think it really comes down to looking at your own self and looking at what is it that, what kind of brokerage are you looking for? What kind of access to budget do you have? What kind of resources are you looking for? Are you a self-starter? Do you need a little bit more support? Do you need someone in close proximity? Is it okay if yours is cloud-based? And I think, and also having information. To me, I mentioned that in the call today, I genuinely I didn't even know that you were self-employed, independent when you go solo. I thought that the brokerages were your employer, because every time I talk to an agent, they're like, oh, such and such brand, Remax and Century 21, and they would use all these big names, and they said, oh, I joined these brokerages because of their name. And then I started doing a lot more research and talking to different brokerages, and I realized that the brokerage brand doesn't really make or break your conversation and the way you work with your clients. It really is the backbone to your business. And I think that once I come to an understanding of what that is, it changed for me. So that was a good conversation around choosing your brokerage. And the next one I really liked was solo versus team. And to me, what stood out for me in that conversation was a lot of people thought, okay, I'm going to go solo. And then they felt stuck, not knowing, what does that entail? And it's all comes down to what I've noticed is a lot of our new agents that we're saying is because they didn't do the homework, they didn't do the research, and now I don't think they said they feel stuck at their brokerage, but they're really definitely reevaluating the way where they are right now. you know. And one of the other thing I've noticed was even my own comment. I thought that you were part of a team when you joined a brokerage, and that you naturally went under a broker, and that they were your mentor, and they're your manager, they're your supervisor, and they're going to help you throughout a transaction. So what is there something along the same line that you caught as well when we talked about solo and teams?
Yeah, I had the same thing. I heard with if you go solo, you're on your own and you can get your broker's help when you need it. And then versus team, there's some different teams that they take a little bit more of your commission, but they are feeding you constant leads. And so for people that aren't very good with marketing, or that maybe are scared to go knock on doors or cold call, that getting a kind of steady source of leads, depending, what their goal is an attractive thing. I knew for myself with my marketing background, and I've ran my own businesses for years, and I just knew that I could do it on my own. I know how to go find clients. I just need to know what's the right avenue to do. And that's why I did all the research prior to getting licensed, watching so many videos. I think I spent more time studying that than I did my course. And, because I knew it was going to make or break me. I didn't want to be another statistic of 87% of realtors in the first 5 years don't make it. That scares the crap out of me still. And, and I think when we talk about this being helpful is you need to know what questions to ask. They don't teach you in your real estate school what questions to ask. We had a very good real estate school where they kind of had some extra videos like, this is what you need to look for in a brokerage. It still was not the greatest insight, but it gave you somewhere to start, right? To start searching. And, things you need to be asking is, what are my startup fees? What are my reoccurring fees with this brokerage? Do I have a desk fee, a franchise fee? People don't know that. They'll tell you, oh, your split is 60-40 or 70-30, but then you have a 6% franchise fee on top of that. That's that fine print that you need to be asking about is, if I get a $10,000 commission, what is the bottom amount that I walk away with on each transaction? Most agents don't even know what a cap is. And I know people that have been in there for 6+ months already, and they still don't know what a cap is, and that is basically how much commission you pay to your brokerage before you can make 100% or an increased percentage. And so, asking, what are my cap fees? What are my splits? What are my reoccurring fees? What are my one-time fees? And, is there any added cost? What do you do for me as far as lead generation? With the brokerage I'm with, that was something they were focused on putting back into their agents, was a good system for lead generation. So you got to sit down and figure out what is your goal. And that kind of jumps over to the business plan or marketing plan is, what is your goal? Some people just want to be a part-time. They might be a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, and they just want a few extra dollars, a few sales, every quarter, just to bring some extra income in, because maybe they can't work full-time. So you got to really evaluate what is your ultimate career goal, and then align yourself with that brokerage that checks off those list items. But you first got to have a list.
I agree. And that's why, even in our call that I mentioned, not every brokerage is for everyone. And I think going back to figuring out, making that list of all of your strengths and list a lot of your weaknesses, and figuring out who is going to help me push towards that weakness for me. And what I found was, same with me, I'm in the same boat as you, and having that marketing background, I wasn't afraid to build my business and attract leads and convert them into clients. I was more afraid of the transactional side and paperwork, and I didn't realize that, right? Like, I think having a real understanding of what is it that you need help with, and how is it your career is going to unfold, is so important. And make sure you're asking the question up front to ensure that this brokerage is going to help you or a team is going to help you in really navigating that, especially in the start of your career. And I really like that you touched upon fees. It's imperative that you understand, because people don't, you have no idea how many people don't read the fine print, right? I had one of the agents who's on my team, her past brokerage charged her a $7 coffee fee. I pay that on my link tree on a monthly basis.
Right.
You pay that on coffee for what? For an office that you barely go into. So make sure you know exactly what you're paying for. Sorry, that's my son again.
He's even crying talking about the fees. It's an upsetting
Yeah.
topic.
And I think figuring out, yeah, making a list of things that the brokerage offer, how much they're charging you, and understanding where those fees are going, because we have limited funds especially when you're starting off as an entrepreneur and being self-employed. Another topic that you hit really tons of awesome points. Another one that I wanted to talk about is marketing training. um, you know where do you have access to, how do you prepare yourself for these? And I know that you talked about having access so you don't have to pay for them, making sure your brokerage have access to some of these things. But remember, in our conversation today was really about prior to your day one, so prior to you joining your brokerage, making sure you're looking at resources that are available, readily available for free on YouTube, tons of things. And we're a big fan of Mike Sherrard, and I watch a ton of his content. I watch a ton of Mike Brian Casella's and Tom Ferry's content. I even have Mike Ferry's, cold calling objection list, and like making sure you have access to all of these things and figuring out what is it that you're going to use while you're in your career. Anything you want to add?
No, exactly. There's plenty of resources out there. We're in this Google age where you literally can find everything. Like we talked about last time, this is a huge online education field. This online courses and education is a $3 trillion industry. So it just means that the content's out there. You got to take the initiative and find it, but you also have to know what you want to accomplish with it. Because how I brand myself, how you brand yourself, how you market yourself, there's templates for everything, but you have to customize those templates and those ideas to fit you. So it's about taking the time and doing the research. Don't just land on the first video and try it. And then whatever you're going to do, just stick with it. Give it time. There's nothing more frustrating than my digital marketing company working with a client. We do a Facebook ad for a week, and they didn't get the leads that that their friend got, but their friend ran it for 60 days. You had to give it time to run. So, you can't just try something for a week and go, oh, it didn't work for me. You have to give it some time, and you have to be able to measure it. So just put the effort in the beginning, because it's going to make that launch so much easier. And I think that's where I kind of found what I call a little success for myself, maybe not as much as other agents, but it was able to hit the ground running, where some other agents, that I see, they're still sitting there with nothing. And I got a little momentum going within the first 45 days. So, just do your homework beforehand, because I think this is more important than passing that test, because if you have a
Absolutely.
license and don't know how to market yourself, you don't know how to use it.
Yeah. Speaking of marketing yourself, one other topic we talked about tonight was, around creating your brand. And what is that like? Not a lot of people think about this. And because, we're so caught up in thinking that a brand is really, a Starbucks brand or McDonald's brand. And we forget that because when you're a realtor, you are the brand. It's a personal brand. And how do you build that? And how do you maintain that and really use that to be a successful success for you? And some of the things that I really liked that we talked about was really figuring out how to find your voice and figuring out who are you and how is that going to be seen on your online content as well as you are when you work with your clients. So we talked about making sure that you're because you're seen a certain way and on your online content, and then let's say you come back to working with your client, you want to make sure that you remain that consistency. And video is another content where people can see a lot through you, and making sure that and is evergreen. So maybe when you're putting together content, and a lot of the time you look at what other agents are doing and doing really well, and you kind of repeat and copy and duplicate, and I get that, and it's a good strategy, but you also want to make sure you review that script to ensure that it fits your market, it's timely, it's accurate, because the last thing you want in your brand is that you are seen as not a knowledge holder, but it's inaccurate. Because the moment you get called for inaccuracy, then people, a buyer or seller, don't want to get aligned with you, because then if she's not getting this content right, then how is she going to be when she helps me buy or sell my property? So make sure that when you're putting out content, wherever you are putting out content, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, make sure it is true to who you are. Make sure that it's not too political. You don't want to get into things that are outside of your brand, right? So always come back to your products and services that you're providing to people, and make sure you're really targeting everything that you're doing with intention. You're not just creating a Facebook page and then putting out different content, and that doesn't really stick. So make sure everything you put out has intention and is reaching the right people. So that's something I really like that we talked about today.
No, I totally agree. And we hear it over and over again is that people think they have a real estate Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, and they literally just post articles about redoing your house and pictures of house. And it's so impersonal. And you have to stand out among the thousands and thousands of realtors. There's, I think it's either 1.4 or 1.6 million realtors right now in the US. That is crazy
That is
number.
crazy.
And so you got to stand out from these people, and only a few make it. So make sure that you are, even if you're copying, getting some ideas from other people's content, make sure you give it your flavor, that they can see you coming through, that your personality shines. Because the worst thing to do, like you said, is to work with a client who saw all your videos and you're a totally different person. And then it kind of like, oh, it's like a bait and switch, it's like you kind of got cheated a little bit. And so, they're gonna watch your videos, they're gonna see your content, they're gonna want to work with you because of that. So, just make sure what you're putting out there really is what you want people to see. Review your stuff. We talk about, we hate to watch ourselves on video, but it is a good idea to watch it because you'll see little ticks that you do, or maybe something you don't like, that how you say certain things, and that you can work on that for future videos and get better. I think people are afraid to do that because they want to get better, but you've really got to get uncomfortable watching yourself and reviewing yourself and critiquing yourself, but in a positive way, critiquing yourself to get better, not just to be hard on yourself. So just be very careful what you put out there. Make sure, I think the biggest thing is just make sure that it's a great mix of content. It's not all real estate, it's not all sports or all whatever, that it's a great mix of your life, of your career, family, home life, or wherever you're at, your interests, your hobbies. And, I think that will connect with people more, because people are always looking for a connection, even in the digital realm. So give it to them.
Yeah, I agree. And I've noticed a lot of realtors too that follow me and that I follow them, and they're always constantly posting, and they're using the right tools, right? They're using TikTok and they're using Reels on Instagram and stories, and they're really pushing the button with the way they're using the platform, but they're making content that's always them showing a place or listing a place, and the people that are watching this stuff are realtors. So I get confused. I'm like, who are you really targeting, buyers or sellers here? And for me, that's why it was really imperative that I started building content that was targeting agents. And then, and my partner who's working with buyers and sellers, really it's about creating a platform and ensuring that we're targeting audience, because I came into this field really to use my marketing to help elevate other people's brand and to work with other agents, to be a marketing consultant to agents. And I know you're on the same boat as me, and I know that, and I love that, while you have these two side gigs going, when I keep an eye on other agents profile, I notice that we often miss the mark on the audience part, and that's essentially all of what you're doing, because at the end of the day you can have a goal to reach a certain person, and you could do a really good job of doing it, but if you don't reach them, then and it's kind of worthless, right, for you putting together that tactic. But so the next topic that we talked about, and I really liked it, and I'm going to grab my phone for this one, is some of the apps that you should download prior to your day one so that you prepare to help you. I'm going to name a couple that I use, and why don't you jump in? And I know in the States for you guys it's a little bit different, and I know, and the way you work as well, the way you work is a little bit differently. So some of the apps that I have on my phone right now are obviously my social media app. I have my Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. And I really like apps that are like Zoom. I have Ring Central as well from EXP. I also have access to WhatsApp so that I can jump on a call really quickly with an agent. I also have a lot of brokerage based, because in our brokerage we have a number of different apps, and I have my real estate board, some of those apps, so that I can jump in and pull up an information, especially with my MLS listing and my backend my KV Core CRM app as well, because I had access to all the information about my client, and I want an added notes if anything comes up. I have a mileage app to track all my mileage and where I'm going. This is very imperative. We went back to talking about, getting a list of service providers, making a list of people that are going to be resourceful for you, including an inspector, a lawyer, mortgage agent, and an accountant. So, and figure that out. Are you going to incorporate or are you not? And it's different, again, depending on state to state and country. So, and ensuring that you have an app where you're making notes as well. And I have access to all my Google platform, because I love all the from Google Keep to the Drive, because I have a lot of information in there, especially for my Google Drive. I put all the forums. So our forums from ORIA, from the Ontario Real Estate Association that we use, I put them in Google Drive, where it has the form explained in plain language, because I'm still struggling with explaining different terminology and legality of forms. So that's something that I use. Again, it's up to you how you want to use them. And there was another one that I use, Canva as well. I have Canva in here. That there's a lot of other apps in here, so that I didn't want it to read through that were personal. But Canva is another one that I use, where I would download a number of different tactics, so that I can, on an ongoing basis, can create something really quickly and put on my social media. What about you, Jacob?
Exactly. If you're not using Canva, download it. It's free. Even the paid version is very inexpensive, especially if you can afford to pay for the year. You can save a lot of money.
I know.
But
I love Canva. With me, I had to get the paid version because it's a minimal cost, because I'm a designer too, and there's so many. It doesn't have access to a lot of little things that the free version has. So I second that big time.
yeah, and even if you can't get the free one, even like some of the pictures are like $1. Like it's very inexpensive, at least here in the States. It's so if you're not going to use it very much for a lot of the premium content, but it has everything from social media posts to your Facebook cover. You can actually totally create your whole brand. You can even set your color settings for your company. There's a lot you can do. And I hate to give away this secret, but I use it a lot for my clients because it's a great way to crank out social media, and you just change it up, and it's an online based, desktop version, but you can do the app version as well. But I have that as well. Another thing that I use a lot, obviously I have my realtor board, my local board down, so I can access the MLS and all those things, my KV core. I use Buffer for all my social media posting. It kind of works like Hootsuite and those others. It's a little more affordable, and works very well with most platforms. Haven't had really any issues. Some other things would be kind of just blanking now. I just had one I wanted to share. Oh, and an expense tracker, that's very important to me. I'm horrible with receipts, and I know a lot more are digital, but like, if you're out, I just had a coffee with a title person, and then went and had lunch with a mortgage person. So those things are write-offs, depending. Now check with your accountant, whatever. No accounting advice here, but it's easier way to take a quick picture of your receipt. It uploads it. One thing I noticed with receipts is they fade, because they're on such cheap paper, that they fade after 30 days, especially gas receipts and all those things. You mentioned mileage tracker. So those little apps really help. You get in a habit of scanning, it uploads it, it reads the receipt, enters it in, and then you just enter a few details, and you can send it right to your bookkeeper, your accountant, your CPA. So that's a big app I recommend. I use Wave Apps, which is a free accounting software. It's kind of like QuickBooks, but it's free. So I'm all about free, even though my accountant doesn't like it, but whatever.
Yeah,
So
and I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention in our group, in our conversation today, but I love Asana. I use that it's my project management tool, and it's integrated with my calendar. So I love that. It's like my digital to-do list. It's all my
yes.
everything is in there. I live out of that. And you mentioned that today. You use Buffer for
No, Buffer's the social media, and then
that's right.
ClickUp.
You scheduling your
ClickUp.
for school,
Yeah.
and I use Hootsuite for my scheduling my content. So that's great. Awesome. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. So
Um,
ClickUp's another one real quick for the task management. You can link it into your calendar. That's what I use. I think it's I don't know, I don't pay for that one. So utilize those things, and don't always go and pay for an app immediately. See if there's an alternative that you can merge to later as you build. Because I look at it, two apps that even though they're $12 a month, that stuff adds up, because trust me, there's about 10, 15 apps I'm paying for. And if you look at it, that gets into your marketing budget and some other things.
100%. And then with
So,
Linktree, and remember, some of the costs are US money for us in Canada. So
yeah,
just keep an
it's
eye on
more.
that. Yeah, it doubles.
Yeah, I have clients in Canada, and they're like, "Can you bring down the price a little bit?" I'm like, "No,"
I
and they're like,
know.
"There's just so much here," and I'm like, "I'm sorry."
I know. And speaking of project, just because we're mentioning a certain app that worked for us, and I'm using a free version of Asana and Hootsuite as well, doesn't mean that you don't have to, you can use
Right.
Buffer for your social media purpose. So figure out what works for you and what tools, because some people like interface and user friendliness of a certain app versus ours. But the last thing I wanted to touch was the importance of kind of budgeting. And I know we touched up on this a little bit, and we talked about really because there are one-time costs and there's a lot of reoccurring costs, and then putting aside money for marketing. And I know in the industry we always talk about 10 to 15% to put it aside to reinvest into your business, but then there's always that startup cost. And I know Sabrina, one of the guests, one of the guests, she jumped in and asked her questions about how much did you spend in your first month as a realtor. And for me, and it was a great question, and for me it was I put aside $500 and I put it on a little bit of everything, really getting a couple of marketing materials together, but then also a lot of ad spend as well. So, and setting up Linktree and a lot of setup costs as well. So, and then now I'm committed to spending on a daily basis $5 through my account for native on my native platform for Facebook ads, and I also run $8 a day through my CRM KV Core app. So ads. So I think it really depending on the types of ads that you're looking to run, the type of, make sure that you, when I talk about spending money on marketing, and I mentioned in our group as well, is that be intentional about the tactics that you choose. And when I say marketing, don't go pay for a bus shelter or a park bench or even a garbage bin. I've seen a lot of realtors putting their face on garbage bin. What is up with that? Do you realize that your personal brand is tied to that? And yeah, maybe you might be the top producing agent in that neighborhood. Kudos for you. But I do not want to associate my brand with being on a garbage bin. So, and the part that I don't like about the garbage bin is not because it's garbage. Garbage and recycling is very important to society. But the fact that you can track it, do you know how many people seen it? Is there a conversion? Is there who's coming in? How is there a call to action? Where are they going? And with this, like people are driving when they're looking at your looking at how many touch points have you had, and there's not a quite way to track. And I recommend that you get in a habit of keeping an eye on KPIs and tracking. Anything you want to add?
No, I totally agree. Budgeting is the one thing I wish I would have paid a little more attention to. I'm very more, when it comes to certain things, impulsive. I knew I was going to do this, talked about it. This has been on my bucket list for 10 years, literally when I was living in Florida. I just never got around to doing it. And when the pandemic hit, I was like, now's the time. And my partner, that was just what stage we wanted to go into our careers. We love real estate. We wanted to add that to kind of our company list. And thankfully he got his license today, which I'm so excited about. So moving forward with that, because it's, as anybody that's going through it, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You can get through it. And budgeting is one thing that I kind of knew what the costs were. I knew all the fees. But one thing that was really funny too is that you see, they'll say, oh, it's $15 a month. Or for instance, our MLS is $25 a month. And I was like, oh, that's nothing. But then you forget there's a $50 application fee. They make you pay 3 months in advance. You pay every quarter. So watch out for those things, because yeah, it might seem, a lot of times I notice if it seems really cheap monthly, it's because they're telling you what the annual monthly is. They want you to pay 12 months up front, and then they'll increase it if you don't. And a lot of times it's double because they have to bill you every month. So pay attention to those things. Really know what, yeah, your first year. And it is a lot. I mean, on our side, not to throw out money, but it was like $208 for license, which I got really cheap for a really good school. I just lucked out for a special. It's usually $500 to $1,000 here. And then you got Realtor Association fees. That was like $600, and then $250 or $150 for the MLS, and then your brokerage fees. So be very mindful, because that's taken away from your marketing. It's taken away from things that you're going to need, business cards, yard signs, and things like that. So, and really prioritize what those are. Can you live with a free version of something, or can you hold out till you get some clients and then order it? What's the turnaround time? So when you're budgeting, also have a priority of the order of spend out of that budget, because some things can wait. I'm working with some buyers right now, trying to attract some sellers, but I have somebody on hold with a design already for yard signs. And the moment somebody signs me, I know I can have a yard sign within 5 days. So that's important to have those things planned out. And I think that's what's really going to help your budget.
Yeah, I have my, we call it the first sale sign, and I have it in my storage. I have 5. I printed them. I am super anal about, I foreshadow like 10 years of my life ahead. Like I told you, I was like pregnant while doing my, like, I was 37 weeks pregnant doing one of the hardest exam for us. And I was, while doing that, I wasn't even studying. I was worried about all, like, what, how am I going to be when I'm a realtor, and thinking about all the forms that I'm going to be remembering. And it's insane. And that's why I always come back to is how much it helped me kind of really position myself to where I am right now, and really pave the, put like the success, right? We've seen results because the fact that we were prepared. And it's, and I go back to this quote is, to be prepared is half the victory,
Mhm.
and to end off, I wanted to thank our guest. We had Mike Sherrard as our special guest tonight. And we also had some new agents. Remember, it is a peer-to-peer session where we want people to get involved, ask questions, share insight and their experiences of things that was working for them, the things that they could have, that they wish they knew. And that's what this room is all about, for us to really learn and help each other out. And it's a safe space for new agents. So I want to thank Mark and Patrick and Chris who joined us tonight as well. And please join Jacob and I every Wednesday and Sundays and Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Time on Clubhouse. And if you're not an iPhone user, no problem. In our description below, we have a link to where you can go register to have access to a video recap just like this. Right after our Clubhouse conversation, we jump on a call to on a Zoom call to kind of talk about all the things that we've learned. And also, and we're looking at planning a lot of other new events in the future. So if there's a topic that we didn't quite cover or you want us to really get into, again, drop us a comment in the video and we'll be happy to get in touch with you. Anything you want to add?
No, just honored to do this with you and to really find a space for new realtors to find some, to kind of see what we're going through on our journey. Where that's what we're doing. We're just sharing our journey. Hopefully, you can avoid some of the bumps in the roads that we're finding out, and make yourself more successful. And just tune in, and where we can help, we'll help. And like you said, the most important thing is to register on our website, because anything that we do, we're gonna send you an email. If you put your phone number, we're gonna start texting soon, so that way we can make sure everybody's tuned in to all the events that we have. And we'll see you next time.